Hello, and welcome to my basement. Woo! Okay, so today I'm going to talk to you guys all about fasteners. Why am I qualified to talk about fasteners? Well, I'm wearing a hard hat, which means I apparently know a thing or two about how to put things together. So, today I'm going to try and convince you guys why Robertson head screws are way better than Phillips head screws. Now, before we talk about screws, we gotta talk about nails. Now, nails are pretty cool because you just smack them with a hammer and they go through wood and they put things together. But there's a big issue with nails, and that you can take a hammer, you can hit nails, but you can't drive screws. Well, a screwdriver, check this out. You can spin in a screw, and you can hit nails. So, just screws are just better because you can do both. So, there's a whole lot of different screws. They're used for different things. In the beginning, there was the humble flathead. Ooh, okay. So, what we use flatheads for, screwing screws. The issue is that since they're flat, they slip out, and you stab your wood, you stab your hand, whatever. Flatheads kind of stink, and you can't use them with power tools because they slip out. So, according to Thompson.net, the Robertson head screw was developed in 1908, invented by Peter Lamberg Robertson. And what the Robertson screw is, it's square. You have a square tip driver. It goes together, and there you go. Now, the interesting thing with Robertson head screws is that it's tapered, so it fits on really good and tight. We'll get back to that later. Now, a lot of you are thinking, what the heck is a Robertson screw? Well, they're not very popular here in America. They were invented in Canada. That's who Mr. Robertson was. He was a Canadian. In America, Phillips head, and really the rest of the world, is way more popular. And it goes together, and you think, oh, it's like two flat heads, and they intersect, and this is just way better. But there's a whole lot of issues with Phillips head, and we'll get back to that later. So, how did this whole thing come about? Well, in 1908, the Robertson head screw was developed. And, it was really becoming popular in Canada. And they built Fords, some Model Ts in Canada. So, that was a whole big deal with the assembly lines and everything. And Henry Ford discovered that, hey, if we use Robertson screws instead of flathead screws, that takes 2 hours off the production time of making Model Ts, which was really important because, if you spend less time making a car, you get to pay your employees less, and then that's more money in your pocket. So that's really good. So, they started using the Robertson head screws on the Model Ts. And Henry Ford, being Henry Ford, he wanted to keep everything in-house. So what he ended up doing was he had a meeting with Mr. Robertson, who was running his own screw company. And he's like, okay, Robertson, love your idea. It's super good. What I would like to do is I would like Ford to license out the Robertson head screw and manufacture our own. Because we don't want to pay you money for the screws. We want to keep as much labor in-house as we can. So Robertson thought very long and hard about this for probably all of about 30 seconds and told him to go kick rocks. It's my invention. You're going to pay me money for it, you jerk American, all that. So Henry Ford, in return, told Mr. Robertson to eat his shorts. This is very historically accurate. You can believe me, I'm wearing a hard hat. So Henry Ford went back to using flathead screws because he rather not pay Robertson for the invention, and he was all right with being more inefficient. So that was in 1908. Probably 1908 the Robertson head screw was invented. It wasn't until the 1920s that the Phillips head was invented, and Ford and a bunch of other American manufacturers, they saw the Phillips head screw. They were like, holy cow, we got an idea. So they started using the Phillips head. It was cheaper for them because it wasn't an international thing. According to phillipsscrews.com/about, in quotes, Phillips screws can be credited with making major contributions to the advancement of industry, which is a bunch of bogus BS, because how could that be if a whole decade prior the Robertson screw was invented? It's just better. Now, I gave you some data, whatnot. You're thinking, all right, Nick, you're a lunatic. You're talking about screws. Like, the hammer thing was kind of funny. Like, what's your point? Well, I got 3 super scientific experiments. We already proved why screws are better than nails. We got 2 more. We got the upside down test and then the drill test. And that's going to show you some reasons why the Robertson screw is better. Okay, so first, the upside down test. Since the Robertson head screw is tapered, let's see if we can get a good image of that. The tip's tapered. The screw really gets on there nice and tight. So even upside down, and you can shake the screwdriver around, screw's not going nowhere. And I know what you're thinking, what is it? What if this driver's magnetic? You're lying. No. It's awesome. Now, you try and do the same thing with a Phillips head screw. You stick it on, it falls off. Stick it on, it falls off. Phillips heads just aren't very good. And, especially when you're climbing up a ladder, you're trying to do this thing and it falls out. Phillips aren't very good. But you take a Robertson head screw, these dudes aren't going anywhere. So now the drill test. So you have it on your drill, you're trying to get it started. The Robertson tip doesn't want to fall off. Now you try and do that same thing with a Phillips head screw. Let's see what happens. Falls off. Not very good. So, what ultimately happened? Well, in the 1940s, this little thing called World War II happened, and America was the arsenal for democracy, in the words of FDR. So, we were manufacturing tanks, guns, airplanes for the whole entire world, and the Phillips head screw became the standard. So, we're shipping these things all across the world to Russia, England, France, and then after the world, us being the global superpower, everyone started adopting our technology. So that's why the Phillips head screw became so popular, which is very unfair because in almost every way, the Robertson screw's better. So, as you can see, now it's 2020. Robertson screws are still very popular in Canada because they have their heads on right, and they think a bit better than us in construction, I suppose. I don't know. But if there's one thing they got right, it's that the Robertson tip screw is way better in every way than the Phillips head.